Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is our In Between Sundays podcast. I'm Andrew Foster. I'm here with my wonderful wife, Stephanie, who co-taught with me. And we are going to be breaking into what we were preaching on Sunday, which is about fasting. So, Stephanie, thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
So we're going to have some fun. We're going to do some kind of digging a little more into fasting, what fasting is, some of the stuff we couldn't get to. And so one of the questions we always like to start with here on the podcast is, was there anything, because you had so much time to talk, and you had so much room in there for all of your thoughts on the sermon. Was there anything that you didn't get to, that you wanted to get to, or that afterwards you had some more thoughts about as far as what we were talking about in the area of fasting?
Yeah, there was a couple things that we didn't quite get to. So one thing that I really wanted to jump into a little bit was it was kind of around the topic of the whole fasting as spiritual feasting thing that we talked about. Yeah. And I've just been digging this particular passage from Isaiah. It's Isaiah 55.
Okay.
And I just kind of want to share it as even something for folks to use as like a devotional or something to kind of like read through, whether during the fast or, anytime really. But it was speaking to me recently. So I'm just going to read from the first few verses here. So Isaiah 55 says, "Come, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and he who has no money, come, buy and eat. Come, buy wine and milk without money and without price. Why do you spend your money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which does not satisfy?" To me, that kind of goes to the what are we filling ourselves with topic. How are we filling ourselves so full of other things that are not truly satisfying, that we don't have enough room in our spiritual bellies for what the Lord has for us and for making room for what he's saying. And then it goes on, "Listen diligently to me and eat what is good and delight yourselves in rich food." Therefore, kind of that spiritual feasting the fasting thing. "Incline your ear and come to me. Hear that your soul may live. And I will make with you an everlasting covenant, my steadfast, sure love for David." Some of the pieces in that passage to me just spoke so strongly of our need to turn down the noise, to incline our ear, to listen diligently, to make space, make room for God to speak through the Logos word of God, through the Rhema word of God, which, the Logos is like the written
word,
divine word. Yep. The Rhema is still divine, but it's like the now word, the specific word that you might receive from the Holy Spirit now in whatever devotional moment you have. But anyway, just as an encouragement for folks, that passage was just speaking to me and encouraging me to make that space.
So how are you making that space right now? What is that looking like practically for you?
For me, it's been coming through in a couple ways. And in this season of fasting, I've been trying to be even more intentional about it. So, for example, when I get into the car, rather than just kind of letting my mind wander and think about whatever, or, popping to the next thing I have to do on my list, I'm trying to tune into the Lord and be like, "Lord, what are you doing today? Lord, hi."
Hi.
Making that space to hear him and to not just kind of go through the motions, so to speak. So that's one way. Another way I'm doing it is to be really specific to have my quiet times every day as much as possible. And that can be hard. You and I have very full lives. We have kids.
Yep.
At the end, for me, when I do my quiet times is at the end of the day when the kids are in bed. So it's like, around a little after 8:00.
Yeah.
And I'm exhausted. I'm really tired. Usually the first thing I want to do is not necessarily sit down and read my Bible and spend time with God. But for me, that's actually, it's kind of like my first fruits time because it's my time to myself, quote unquote.
It's your first moment to yourself.
Yes. Yeah. So for me, that has been something the Lord has been challenging me on, to really keep that dedicated to him and not to give it up to watching a show or just doing what I need to do for the next day. Or so anyway, that's one other way I'm trying to incline my ear and listen diligently. I'm making that dedicated space where it's quiet in the house. Kids aren't yelling or screaming. I can hear him, or at least it's easier for me to hear him.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
I think, because I think we also, another verse that goes along with that was James 4:8, which I think we used, right? And it's the idea of draw near to God, right? And he will draw near to you, right? And it's beautiful because it's always a good reminder that it's a promise, right? That in fasting, we never fast to get something. We always remind ourselves of that. Like, this is not to twist God's arm.
Yeah.
This is not a manipulation tactic, right? But when we fast, when we draw near to him, the Bible promises us that he will draw near to us.
Yeah. I love that.
And
That's amazing.
it is. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be, I want to also always give us the reminder that him drawing near doesn't always mean I'm going to feel what I think I should feel. It doesn't mean I'm going to get the butterflies or the goosebumps. It doesn't mean that maybe something's going to go away I think it should, right? But there's the understanding that am I going to live my life as I fast with the understanding that as I draw near to him, there's the promise he is going to be closer. So even if I'm not always aware of it, even if I can't feel it or sense it, it doesn't lack.
Right.
There's not anything that should make me think that it's not true because God is drawing closer to us, right? That
Yeah.
it's
That's so good.
we are starving the flesh and feeding the spirit, right? For lack of a better term, right? And then also something we didn't talk about, I don't think, but it kind of ties into the same idea too about just being overly full. And so what we're doing is one of the things we do when we fast is we're basically training ourselves to be content, even when we do not feel physically satisfied, right?
Yep.
Because Paul talks about it a lot. Paul talks about it in 2 Corinthians 12 about how he's learned to be content, right? In all things. I think it's 2 Corinthians 12. I could be wrong. But then also he goes on, I know, in 2 Corinthians 12 specifically to talk about how in his weakness, God is his strength, right? That when I am weak, he is strong, right?
Yep.
And that whole idea of, I think, of fasting too is that when we fast, we're teaching ourselves, we're training ourselves that even if I do not get what I want, what my body craves and what my body desires, can I still learn to be content and to feed myself on the presence of God instead? Because I think
So good.
for a lot of us, we live in we all do here in the States, right? We live in a world where our desires and the things we might want are at our fingertips. It is easy to get what I want, what I feel like I need. It's easy to get what I desire. And very few of us have learned to live with not being truly content, especially as adults. I think as kids, maybe we learn with that a little more. I mean, we do with our children, right?
Yeah.
Where our kids want a lot of things and they do not get them. And they live with learning how to be content with not getting what they want all the time.
Yep.
Because if our children got what they wanted all the time, they would get chips. Orange chips would be a very common thing.
They would live on snacks.
They would live on snacks.
That's what it
They
would
would
be.
live on orange chips if we let them live on orange chips. They would live on fishies, probably if we let them live on fishies. Probably bananas. Honestly, they do love bananas and applesauce, but they would go for the chips first. If they had their way, right? And so we teach our kids how to deny themselves, right? We teach our kids how to be content when they don't get what they want. We do it nightly almost of, no, you're not going to have that. If you're hungry, you can have an applesauce. You can have whatever it is, right? But so, you need to be, it's okay. Even if you don't get what you want, you're okay, right? But as adults, I don't feel like we do the same thing for ourselves. Because as adults, we have a lot more autonomy and the ability
More freedom.
Yeah, we have the freedom. We have the ability to go and buy something if we want it, to get ourselves, and I'm not talking about something crazy or super expensive, right? But if I have a want or a desire, I can fulfill it quite easily. And we can easily fall into this pattern of getting so used to the fact of getting what we want that we lose the ability to be content when maybe things aren't how we want them to be. And I think that can also then relate into our spiritual lives, that when in just my natural life, when I don't learn how to be content, right? If I don't give myself the opportunity to stretch that muscle of how am I content even if I don't get what I want, then in my life spiritually, when things happen, when I'm challenged, when a prayer is not answered as soon as I want it to be, when God is doing something different, when I'm not content with how things are looking, if I haven't developed the ability to learn, right, how to be happy with him, how to be content in what's happening, right? Then I think I can also struggle in that.
Yeah,
and I think
that's a good point.
Part of what happens is a lot of Christians, we've not taught, we've not learned, we've not stretched ourselves in what it learns to be just content in all things. And part of the reason why we struggle with that is because I think a lot of us have given up what fasting is. We don't understand that when we fast, when I'm starving myself in order to feed my spirit, when I'm teaching myself that even if I don't get what I want, God is still good. Even if this is uncomfortable for me, it doesn't change the fact I can draw near to him. I think that also teaches us in more ways than just, in more ways than one. So do you have anything you want to add to that?
I guess my follow-up question would be, what have you found any like particular keys for yourself, or how to fast successfully, and how to navigate that struggle? Because if we're used to satisfying
Yeah.
ourselves all the time and not telling ourselves no, how do we come into that and fast successfully and
Yeah.
deny ourselves appropriately? And
I
what have you
think
found?
I have the thought of, because nowadays we have I do a mix of a fast, right? So I
Hmm.
do a mix of Daniel and a mix of no food, right? And so I
Yeah.
have days where I rotate, where I don't eat anything this day at all, and days where I eat a Daniel fast, which is based off of the book of Daniel, right? What Daniel did. And so I have to be careful because of the day and the age we live in. There are a lot of things I can find that would fit in with the Daniel fast that taste really good and don't taste like much of a sacrifice. So if I am not careful, I'm also a decent cook. And so I can also make food that tastes really good. So
I was just thinking about this today, actually,
for
because
you,
I was making a delicious lunch that
uh-huh,
Andrew made that's, Daniel fast appropriate.
yeah.
And
It was just
it
a
was
curry. It was like
delicious.
just a vegan curry.
Yeah, I was very happy with it. My stomach
Yeah.
was very satisfied. I'm like, oh, does this count?
I know. That was the conversation we were having in our staff meetings where we were saying, I was like, well, I made this curry and it was good. It was simple. Didn't take me
Yeah.
long. It was super easy. Bunch of vegetables, coconut milk, some curry paste. Like it's this basic curry. And then I was saying it was good. And I go, the problem is I was wondering, was it too good?
Is it too good?
Was it too good that it wasn't much of a sacrifice? But for me, I was still craving other things
Yeah.
that very night, right? I was still wanting other things. And so I think part for me, this fast round, I'm actually doing some days where I'm not eating. That's not my normal.
Right.
Usually I do more of a Daniel fast, but I'm like, no, I need to push myself a little further. And so I've picked certain days now out of the week where I don't do food at all. And that's because I want my body to feel that desire, that need, and be just have the ability to learn to tell myself no, that food does
Yeah.
not get to control me. That, I think we talked about it quite a bit in our sermon, right? But we talk about how, is there a cost? Is there a sacrifice?
Right. That was what you started out
To
of the
the
gate
fat,
with.
right? I
was,
did, because it's one of my
yeah.
favorite things. 2 Samuel 24:24, right? It's David talking. However, the king said to Araunah, "No, but I will certainly buy it from you for a price. For I will not offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God that costs me nothing."
So
Right?
good.
The idea of a sacrifice should cost us something, because if it doesn't, then it's not truly a sacrifice, right? And when the Bible talks about us offering our bodies as a living sacrifice, when we talk about a sacrifice of praise, right, in the Bible, all of these things hold the idea that it's costly, that a sacrifice, for it to truly be a sacrifice, means it costs me something. I'm
Yes.
saying no, or I'm losing out on one thing to say yes to something else, or to give towards something else. And so when I'm fasting, it's supposed to be something that is sacrificial. It's supposed to be something that is costly. It's not comfortable. And so I think I have to make sure, because we did a fast once. I mean, we've done them every year for
A long time.
long time, years. And I know there was one year where I was so focused on making food that I could eat that was good.
I remember that year.
Yeah, it was a pretty intense year. That I was,
He was in the kitchen a lot.
I failed. I was so focused on, I want to eat food that's good, that's fast appropriate, because I'm still doing this for the Lord, but I
missing
spent
the point.
so much time, right? And then the food was good, but it was good to the point where it probably wasn't sacrificial. And so I don't think the curry falls into that. It was a very basic thing. So, but I think I want to just have the awareness of, I want to make sure that for me to be successful at this, for me to grow that level of contentment, for me to be okay in not having what my body craves and desires, right? That I need to just watch what I am doing. And for me, part of that is giving up food totally for part of the week.
So fasting is also, in a way, it's like contentment training.
I think so. I think that's
Yeah.
a piece of it, right?
Yeah.
I think it's about learning to be content in all things,
Mhm.
because are you content when you don't get the food you want? Are you content when you don't get that cup of coffee that you want? Are you content with, are you able to tell yourself no,
Right.
right?
I
Because
think it's a really good gauge for
I think it is, because
all of us.
if I am unable to tell myself no, I'll probably struggle when God tells me no.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I can't even have the level of self-control over myself to tell myself no, then when God tells me something, I have to be the one to enforce that over my
Right.
life, right? When God tells me, hey, that is something you cannot do, that's not something you're supposed to do. If I cannot adjust tell myself no, then that's a pretty bad sign. So,
Yep.
and I've heard a lot of people. I think his name is Joseph Foster, Judah. Can't remember the name, but I was reading some of his stuff on fasting. I'll have to look at who it was later. And he makes a comment that fasting always highlights or reveals whatever sin or struggle or thing has control in our life, right? Because it's part of what it does is it brings to the surface the things that we're struggling with. Also because when you are in uncomfortable situation, like when you feel uncomfortable for an extended period of time,
emotions are already coming out.
Emotions rise. It's easy to be irritable. It's easy to feel a lot of things. It's easy to look for what we would call vices, or like you look for comforts, right? And sometimes you look for comforts in things you shouldn't. Sometimes it's other things. Sometimes it's, oh, wow, I am being very short with my children, and I shouldn't be short with my children.
I had that experience this morning. I was like, oh, wow.
I wasn't thinking of that specifically, but yeah, no. It's those little things, right? And so I think that is a good highlight as well for it. It's just those, for it. So when we were talking about fasting too, something we did is we talked a bit about how the early church was birthed in prayer and fasting. We read Matthew 9:15, and it's Jesus talking. He says the time will come soon when the bridegroom will be taken from them, and then they will fast, right? And so can you just tell us, when did you first start fasting? When did you first start seeing that there was a value in fasting?
In my own personal life?
For you personally.
That's a good question. I think my first real exposure or kind of wrapping my head around the idea of fasting happened when I was in youth group. Because we used to do this thing called 30-hour famine.
Yeah.
Did you ever do a 30-hour famine?
Today. Yeah, me and someone we're talking about that today.
Yeah. So my youth pastors back in the day, they would host this thing every year where youth, I think it was like a national thing too. It's like, it's not just here, it's all over the place. Youth groups, young people would participate in this thing where you're also kind of bringing awareness to global hunger and poverty, but you choose to fast for 30 hours from food. Yeah. So, and it was hard. And but it was also really neat because you were doing it together. Often you would spend those 30 hours together. Like you'd have we had an all-nighter. And so we would do that, and everyone's hungry, but we're also worshiping, and we're playing some games, we're having devotional time, and so it's like we're
doing all the stuff.
It was a really neat way to kind of intentionally focus on the Lord together during that time and have that camaraderie and support.
Okay. Yeah.
So it wasn't just me trying to do it on my own, but that introduced me to the no food thing, and I was it was hard. So, but it was also a good challenge, and I appreciated that I could do it with other people, and I felt more successful in that endeavor
doing it with other people.
Yeah. How about for you? What was your first exposure?
I honestly think probably when we were down in Reading.
Yeah.
I think was like my first ownership level of it. So, because we fasted as a family when I was young, right? We would pick something and we would fast.
Yeah.
But I think I did it less because I wanted to and more because it was what we did, right? And I was a child living at home. I had the requirements of being a child living at home.
Yeah.
And so, but I think down in Reading when we were, I'm on my own. And that's when I really had to make those choices, of fasting.
Or not.
Or not fasting, and we usually did, we used to break fast In-N-Out back then. In that
I
day,
remember.
So that was always great for your gut health. That was really good. But yeah, I think that was when I finally started to do a level of ownership. So I think it's important, though, that we still train our children and we train the young people. Why are we fasting? Like,
what's the benefit?
Why is this important? Why is it good to learn how to say no to ourselves? And to also just take space and time to pursue the Lord, right, in ways that aren't just comfort driven, that aren't just in the ease of everything, right? And so, our oldest has made his decision that he was going to fast sugar for 3 days, and so he's going to pick what days. That's a big deal for him, especially because Christmas just happened and he
has candy in a bowl somewhere.
Too much candy.
Away from his reach.
Yeah, hidden high on the shelf. And so there's going to be 3 days out of this thing where he will not do candy was what he chose. So it's like, very good. Okay.
There you go.
So I think as parents too, it's important that we help teach our children how to fast, right? I mean, the Bible makes it really clear. Train a child in the way they should go so they shall not depart from it. Yes. And the idea is that we are to train our children in all things. And I think fasting is one of those ways we train our children where we teach them that, hey, it is okay to deny yourself. It is
It's a good thing.
okay. It's a very good thing, right? It's a good
Mhm.
thing to let the Lord be your strength and your weakness. It's a good thing to have the fruit of the Spirit that is self-control and the ability to tell yourself no,
Yeah.
and all that. And it's also something that, hey, that Jesus said that the disciples, that those who follow him will do, right, when he left. And so this
Mhm.
is something that we do because it's about turning our attention and our focus on him. And I think there's practical ways to help set up our kids to be successful in it. We don't ask our 2-year-old to fast. It's not like impossible. He'll eat what we eat to a certain extent anyways, but it's impossible in the sense of that he does not understand.
A little too early for him
Yeah, it's
still.
too early. So, um, want to ask you another question because we talked a lot about what fasting is, right, and what fasting isn't. And we talked about how fasting is a tool, right? It's a tool on
Yes.
the tool belt. It's not the end all, the be all, but it is something that God does tell us to do, encourages us to do, and stuff like that. Is there anything specific you are believing the Lord for or you're praying into as you're fasting this year?
Mhm. Excuse me. That's really good. I think what I'm trying to do at this point is kind of agree with some of the things that you'd pointed out that the church is going after.
Yeah.
So like Hope on the Riverfront, for
Hmm.
example, our missionaries, some
Hmm.
of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm also beyond, those specific things to go after. Really been trying to work on my intimacy with the Lord because I
Okay.
think for
Yeah.
me it's easy for me to get in a to do mode,
Uh-huh.
so to speak, where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pray about this and I'm gonna pray about this and pray about this. We
Yeah.
gotta get her done, Lord. And I do the checkbox thing in my brain. And for me, I don't know if who else is like this, but that actually can be it's productive in the spirit realm,
Mhm.
but can be counterproductive in a way for me and my relationship with the Lord
Mm.
because it's transactional.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I have to be really intentional to make him the focus
Mhm.
and to make sure that my number one priority is connecting with him.
Mm.
So that's probably for me right now. And this
Yeah.
particular fast is the biggest thing for me because I think in this particular season of my life, I've been distracted pretty easily. I've
Mhm.
been feeling overwhelmed. So I'm like, okay, Lord, this number one goal here for me.
Yeah.
But also joining with the church on some of the other
Yeah. Some of the other stuff.
pieces. Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like part of what we're doing as a church is that, I mean, there's a lot of ties for fasting and breakthrough in the Bible, right?
Yeah.
Isaiah 58, 6-9
I was
talks
wondering if you'd
about,
go there. Yeah.
yeah, is this
It's a
not
good
the
one.
fast that I've chosen to loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, that you might break every yoke? And then later on it goes, then you shall call and the Lord will answer. You shall cry and he will say, here I am. And I think
So good.
fasting is so often tied to corporate breakthroughs. I even think about Joel 2:12-13, and it says, turn to me now while there's time, give me your hearts, come with fasting, weeping, and mourning. Then later it says, return to the Lord your God, for he's merciful and compassionate. And then later in Joel 2, right, is the verse we always quote in Joel 2:28 that says, and afterward I will pour out my spirit on all flesh, your sons and your daughters will prophesy, your
Yes.
young men will see visions, your old men will see dreams, even on, my sons and daughters I'll pour out my spirit. And I think about how that verse, though, that we always quote, one of the beginning parts about it is about this thing about fasting, about drawing near to the Lord
Yes.
with weeping, with repentance. And so I think fasting is one of those things that brings us to God because it is a sacrificial thing, right? It's something where we are pulling into him, and it's something that does loose. It unburdens you. You're laying something down to pursue more of him. You're looking just beyond yourself. You're trying to focus your eyes on what God is doing, on what he is saying. And so I think part of what I'm believing for us as a church and as a body is to see a breakthrough in healing, because I believe
Yes.
that healing is something that we are called to walk into, right? It's something that we believe in. I mean, it's Isaiah 58:8. Then your light shall break forth like the morning, and your healing shall spring forth speedily, right?
Come on.
And so if you study Isaiah 58, I think you'll find several promises connected with unselfish fasting, including health and healing, right? And
Mm.
so I really think there's something that goes with it, that when we are fasting, we are pursuing after the Lord, right? When we're believing for these things, praying into them, and we're not doing them selfishly, we're doing them unselfishly. Like, I am not praying for healing. I'm not fasting right now and praying for miracles in people's lives so that I have a story to brag about, so that I can feel better about myself, so I have a notch on my belt. I want to see these people touched and healed. I want to see people healed from
Absolutely.
cancer. I want to see people totally touched by the power of God. And so as we're praying for these things, as we're believing for these things, right? I think that part of what we are called to do as a church is to focus in on this area, that we want to see people healed.
Yes.
That it was what Jesus did on the cross, right? The blood of Jesus purchased their salvation. It also purchased their healing. And so we're believing for that completely and totally.
So good. I love that. I wonder
Yeah.
if I can kind of ask you a follow-up question to that, because I keep thinking of the particular passage, and I could probably find it here, but when there's a man who has, he's demon-possessed, and the disciples try to cast it out, and they're unable to for whatever reason.
Yeah.
They come to Jesus and say, hey, we haven't been able to do this.
Matthew 17.
Thank you. Yeah. And so Jesus says this kind only comes out through prayer and fasting.
Yep.
And he, of course, I think you talked about the lifestyle of Jesus, including fasting. But I wondered if you could talk about that part a little bit, the deliverance part.
I think that's probably the tie-in for that. And I think that a lot of that comes from what I think Bill Johnson usually spoke on it a lot back in the day when we were down there. But we talked about on Sunday, right, the difference between the people want the life of Jesus. They want to see the miracles. They want to see the breakthroughs. They want to see a lot of the stuff that Jesus, they want to do the things Jesus did, right? Because
without the sacrifices they did.
But they're not willing to sacrifice. They're not willing to live the lifestyle he did, right? Jesus saw amazing miracles happen. Jesus withdrew to pray with the Father daily. It almost seems like, at least on the regular.
Yeah.
He would withdraw. He would go away to be with his Father, to seek his Father, to pray with his Father, right? Jesus constantly was willing to step out into uncomfortable situations. He was willing to take steps of faith. He was willing to do things that were contradictory to what common sense would say, but he would do them because he was so close with his Father, so intimate with his Father, right? And so in Matthew 17, when the disciples, when Jesus cast out the demon, and the disciples were like, why couldn't we do that, right? And he makes the comment that this kind only comes out by prayer and fasting. I think one of the most phenomenal things that Bill talks about with this is the fact that in that moment, did Jesus pray and fast? No. He did not pray and fast. He commanded the demon to come out.
And it came out.
And it came out, right? He was not fasting right then and there. He wasn't like, okay, I'm going to need to fast for 2 days.
I'll see you in a couple days.
Then bring the demon-possessed person back to me, and then I will. No. And so it's the idea that because of the lifestyle that Jesus lived a lifestyle of prayer and fasting.
He cultivated this.
He cultivated it. He was constantly seeking the Father. He was constantly trying to live his life in a way. No, he did. He wasn't trying. He was Jesus. He was perfect. So he was. In my sense, when I think of me, I'm always trying to live in a way where my life is reflective of him, where I am being sacrificial, where I am laying things down, where I am being aware of his voice and what he is doing. I think it's a similar idea to even in the beginning of Matthew where Jesus goes into the desert, right? Where he's fasting for 40 days. It's after the dove comes down from heaven. The voice says, this is my son with whom I am well pleased, right? The Holy Spirit descends like a dove. Jesus goes into the desert, and then he's fast for 40 days and 40 nights, and then he's tempted by the devil. John Mark Comer in his book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, makes a statement that a lot of us, when we see Jesus in that part of temptation, we see him in a weakened state because he hasn't eaten, he hasn't drank anything. But John Mark Comer makes the argument that Jesus was actually in the strongest state he could have been in because he has coming out of a time where he was fasting and being dependent upon his Father.
Right.
So Jesus was not entering into that time of temptation in a weakened state because he was deprived of food. He was actually entering into that state in a strengthened state spiritually.
I love that.
Because he had been so dependent. He had been feasting upon God. He had been spending time with his Father. And so he was able to stand before Satan as he was being tempted, as he was being offered the kingdoms of the world, or, turn these stones into bread and throw yourself from this high place and will not the angels catch you? And, all the different things Satan was doing with him, that he was actually in such a strong place because he had been not reliant upon the physical, but upon the spiritual, upon God.
Yeah, what a flip-flop of our understanding how the world sees strength. Yeah. We see it in the sense of the physical strength.
Yeah,
and
it all goes back to what Paul talks about, right? That in my weakness, he's strong. He's my strength, right? And so I think it's that understanding that when we are fasting, what you're actually doing is you're strengthening yourself spiritually.
Yes.
Fasting is not you just because it is sacrificial. It is you offering something up. It's you learning how to be content when you're not comfortable. It's all those things, but it's also you strengthening your spiritual man. That for the breakthrough that we're believing for God to do, for the breakthrough we want to see, one of the reasons why we're fasting is because we are strengthening ourselves spiritually. We're going into a level of warfare so that when we make these steps, when we're stepping out in faith, we're not reliant upon how we feel. We're not reliant upon how hungry we are or like whatever. We're not relying upon our feelings. I'm relying upon God and his word and what he is saying.
So good.
So yeah, I think the lifestyle versus it. So I think, and we said this, and I have not been perfect with this whatsoever. Bro Drew is the best faster on church staff. Cause he's great. He does it every week. He fasts.
That's awesome.
But I think it's something that we need to be better at, right? Is that fasting should not be a one-time. We do it every year as a church. We do it for 21 days in January. It should not just be a January thing. That we should have a lifestyle of fasting where we are constantly being willing to deprive ourselves of food, right, or of comforts or whatever it is to pursue God, to allow ourselves to be strengthened spiritually.
It's such an amazing invitation and challenge at the same time
Yeah.
to that opportunity to strengthen ourselves spiritually. And we're first and foremost spiritual beings, right? Like that.
Yep.
We're supposed to be led by our spirit, by his spirit,
Yep.
right? And not by our physical bodies. So it besides the fact that, fasting isn't comfortable. It's not like everyone's yay, fasting.
Woo-hoo, rah, rah.
But I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Like
much so.
it's something to be excited about in the sense that, wow, okay, what are we going to see God do?
Yeah. Yeah.
When we partner with him, when we lay down these other things that have meant too much to us.
Yeah.
When we're focused on him, what are we going to see happen?
Yeah.
I think that's exciting.
Isn't that the interesting thing too, is that when Jesus was led away into the desert for those 40 days, 40 nights, he was also completely deprived of entertainment. He was completely deprived of distractions. Like he truly was, right? In a place where he was reliant solely upon God, right? And so I think there's this place with fasting where we always want to make sure that as we lay something down, we fill in the time and we fill in the spot with spending time with Jesus, where we're pursuing him, where we're reading the word, we're worshiping, we're not, it's so easy to be distracted. Your phone offers you a million distractions. You have whatever streaming services you have on your TV. I mean, there's always something. And so I think the challenge is Jesus, I think so often why he did go to the secret place, to the arena, to the wilderness, or why he would, he went off into the desert, and stuff like that, was because he wanted to be focused solely upon God, on his Father, right?
Yes.
And that's what we want while we're fasting. We want our focus to be locked on him.
So what do you see as, for folks that have, lots of things going on in their world, maybe their house has loud things going on, kids or spouses or whatever, jobs, how do you kind of just get away from the noise? What do you think is the best way to get that alone time with the Lord, and kind of a similar way to what Jesus did?
I think it's seasonal. I think it depends on what your season is, right? Because obviously if you have babies at home, you're not leaving them and saying, I need to go spend time with Jesus.
I'm going to the mountain.
You got to go figure it out. So I think there's a seasonal aspect of what your life is and what you can realistically do and practically do. God bless Jesus. He was single. He was a single bachelor who lived with a bunch of dudes, traveled with a bunch of dudes, right? And so he had a little more freedom in that side of it. So I think you need to be realistic, right? And so one of the things we talk a lot about is that how are you setting yourself up for success? Because I think a lot of Christians a lot of people easily get discouraged, right?
Yes.
And so as Christians, we're called to live in hope, right? And I think part about having hope is setting ourselves up for success in what we're doing, which means that I don't automatically try with the 2 kids at home to do a 21-day water fast, and with the belief that every single mealtime I'm going to lock myself in my room and pray and worship, and that you are just going to handle everything. Like that's
thanks for not doing that.
That's not realistic, right? That's silly. That's not realistic, right? And so instead, I set up ways for me to connect with the Lord that are realistic, that I can do. It doesn't mean I don't challenge, I don't push myself, right, to do things in a different way.
Yeah.
But I don't make unrealistic expectations out of it. I don't turn it into a religious duty. I look for the moments that I can. If I have more freedom and more space, if I didn't have kids at home, I'd have a lot more freedom. When I was a single young man with roommates, we would go to the prayer chapel at like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
because we could do that.
Yep.
You know, our life is not in the place anymore where we can do that. So I think it's important for everyone, no matter where you are, that it's not always about the amount of time you're spending with the Lord, right? It's about the quality of time you're spending.
Absolutely.
And that's true for almost anything, in our lives. And so even if you can only get that 5 minutes of quiet with the Lord, make that 5 minutes the best 5 minutes. Be grateful for that 5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then be willing to go spend time with the children, because they're also what the Lord has given you to steward in this time of your life.
Yes.
So
Absolutely. It makes
you
me
have a
think
better
of
idea?
it just makes me think of two pieces in scripture where there was the widow that came with the 2 minas,
Yeah.
and Jesus said that she gave more than any of the other
Anyone
rich
else
folks
had.
who poured, money into the coffers of the
Yep.
temple, and she just gave 2 coins.
Yep,
And
gave what she had.
he said she gave more than all the rest. So
Yep.
in the sense that we can also do that with our time, because time is also a resource.
100%.
So if we are giving him, like you said, the time that we do have, the
Mhm.
5 minutes or whatever it is,
Yeah.
he still honors that, and he sees
Yeah.
that because he knows our season. He knows what we're carrying.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of it, it took me back to the Mary and Martha stuff that we talked about on
yeah.
Sunday,
Yeah.
because something that the Lord continually speaks to me in that story is that it's not about inaction. I don't think the problem was that Martha was working hard to serve Jesus. I think that was beautiful.
Yeah.
But it was her focus that was the problem.
Yeah.
She was so focused on doing the things
Yeah.
and not on him that she missed out on what Mary was getting by sitting at his feet.
Yeah.
So I think even in the moments where maybe we are busy, we do have to get these tasks done or whatever. For example, it's say I'm doing the dishes because, we got to have clean dishes in the morning. I can choose in that moment to focus on the Lord while I'm doing dishes.
Yeah, 100%.
Rather than being like, oh, I got to do the dishes and I don't have time with the Lord again, and entering into a place of shame or
just watching a TV show while you're doing the dishes.
Right, exactly.
Or whatever.
Yeah, using that.
Listening to an Audible or something.
Totally. Of all the infinite things that I could do while I'm, doing the chores, I can also use it as an opportunity to connect with the Lord.
Yeah.
So focusing on him
Yeah.
rather than on just the doing. Yeah.
That's good. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up here?
I don't think so. How about you? You got anything else you want to add?
That was good. So
Awesome.
awesome.
Yay for fasting.
Yay for fasting. So, and we're not gonna talk about fasting this next week, but we will continue on just some of the things we're believing for in the fast with breakthrough and stuff like that. So I might hit fasting a tad bit, but more with what we just talked about, diving a little deeper into Joel and Isaiah 58.
Yeah.
So we'll see what God does. But I want to say thank you for joining us for this time. Steph, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, taking time out of your busy day to come jump on the podcast. And so you can join us anytime at Sunday here at Life Church. Services are at 10:30. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, wherever podcasts are played. And we hope you will join us again.